three basic instruments that are used in cultures all over the world. And those three are very ancient. The instruments that we play in shamanic work are the drum, the flute, and the rattle. I would also like to mention that there is a different kind of wind instrument that is used in Australia, which is called the didgeridoo. Didgeridoo is a single note instrument, and a lot of sounds can be made by the way that you play the didge with your lips. So two different wind instruments from two different continents. Both serve pretty much the same purpose. That is, the communication of spirit through the instrument is about the combination of breath and a variety of different kinds of intonations. Now, talking about the flute will be a lot longer than I have in terms of video today. But what I want to focus on for this one is the rattle. Because in addition to the drum, a rattle is very common and traditional in shamanic work, both in ritual and ceremony and also in healing work. Let me demonstrate a couple of different kinds of rattles and talk about some of their construction and how they may be used, so you can get an idea of the breadth of rattles and rhythm. This particular rattle is made of wicker that's woven around it, has a handle, and the beads inside, I'm not sure what they are, I can't really tell. But the sound of a rattle is composed of what is on the outside, the material on the outside, and what's on the inside. And I'm going to demonstrate a few things about how they relate to each other in just a moment. But this is what this one sounds like. Okay, so that's that rattle. This is a very different rattle. This was made for me by an artisan, and it is made of wood. There's 20 sides to this head, and it's glued onto a natural stick, a limb. Now, it's much louder than the other one, and would be very good for outdoors work or in a larger ceremonial setting. But its volume has to do with, again, the wood on the outside and whatever the beads were that he put on the inside. Here are two more that are perhaps a little more practical, particularly if you want to carry a rattle with you in your bag or briefcase. They're much smaller, and they still have a really nice sound to them. This one is wood. And I'm not sure about what's on the inside. This was purchased at a local drum store. This one is called an egg. It also is wooden, and has a soft sound to it. And if I hold it more in my palm, it really softens the sound a lot. So these two are really quite practical if you would like to carry a rattle around with you. So let me talk about other rattles. Now, these are three rattles that I made, and I'll tell you how I made them in just a minute. Okay, this is leather, and it has some large beams in it. It's really quite noisy. This one is much softer. Again, it's leather. And I believe this one has grains of rice in it. And this one is somewhere in the middle. These three rattles I made at the same time in a drum making workshop. And the material that is used is really quite simple. The outside is leather, and it's sewn together. So it's made of two pieces of leather like this and sewn around the connection between the two. Now, sometimes the rattle may be made inside out, and then whenever you finish the stitching, you turn it so that the outside, the smoother outside, may be what you're wanting. And then it's made longer here so that we could insert a stick and wrap them with sinew to hold it together. So how does it get its shape? Well, it's really quite ingenious, actually. What you do is when you finish the outside, when you finish the head of the rattle, then you fill it with sand and you pack it. Now, in order to work with the leather, it has to be wet. Otherwise, it can't be easily manipulated. But whenever you finish with that and you pack it with sand, then you might hang it overnight, say on the doorknob or a tree, and let it dry. And when it's dried, then you empty the sand and it will hold this shape, whatever shape that it is that you make the rattle head to be. Now, you can make a rattle head in any shape that you want. It's just a matter of cutting the leather into, say, a bird's head or a star or a moon. So it can be any shape that you want. But the trick is to sew it well so that it holds together, fill it with sand, really pack the sand in so that it has a nice firm shape to it, let it dry, and whenever it's dried, then you can insert the whatever you want, beads or rice or sand. One rattle that I have, I used asphalt pieces from a road. It was around where I made that particular rattle. So these three I often use together because they have a nice range of sound from high to low. And when I do, then I use this rabbit pelt to hold them all together. Now, how are rattles used? This is how they look and how they sound and some about how they are made, but how are they used? The rattles are used for a variety of different things. One is for clearing the field around you. For example, just rattling around you can help to break up whatever stuck energies that there are in your field and loosen them so they can be sent away. It works quite a bit like sage. In fact, sometimes whenever in circle we have someone who may be allergic to sage or smoke, we don't use sage. Instead, we go around and we rattle everyone. It does roughly the same thing. So if you wanted to have your rattle with you, you can always rattle yourself when you get a chance and you feel like you would like to. So that's one way. Rattles are also used in healing practices, and that's for two different kinds of reasons. In addition to the ability of the rattle to break up energy, at the end of a healing session, then I will usually rattle the field of my client. What that does is it helps to keep the energy together. It's like a blanket of sound that goes around the client and helps to hold the healing that we've done. And thirdly, a really good shaman or healer could use a rattle very much like a scalpel. So a single rattle like that can be seen to open the field like a scalpel. Okay, so there's three different ways that rattles can be used. And in addition to that, I have a story for you. A friend of mine makes rattles, and she often will sell them at one of the local metaphysical fairs. And she had a number of rattles on her table at her booth. And a woman walked up and was looking at all the different rattles, and my friend said, pick one and feel free to sit and play. And so this elderly woman did. She picked a rattle and she sat down in a chair and started rattling. And while she was rattling, she started talking, and she told my friend about her life, what it was like when she was a young girl, who she was as she was growing up, and her family and her husband and her children. Basically, she just simply told my friend a shortened version of the story of her life. And after a while, the elder woman put down the rattle and said thank you and walked on. Right after that, another woman walked up and talked to my friend, and she said, that woman is my mother, and she hasn't spoken since she had Alzheimer's. And so she had never said anything for a long time, but there was something about the sound of the rattle that helped her to come out of that perhaps stupor and be able to talk and to share some of her story. I've also witnessed in hospice that rattling gently can help to calm people whenever I have gone to visit with them. So often as not, I'll take one of my smaller rattles and spend a little time rattling with the individual that I'm sitting with. So these are rattles, and they are key instruments for shamanic practice. You can find them in any store that sells drums or percussives. This one was purchased at a local magic store. So keep your eyes and ears open for what might show up for you in terms of a rattle. And remember too, like the drum, a search for a good rattle for you is very much a quest. So you might not just pick up the first one that you see. Get a feel for how it sounds, and get a feel for how it feels in your hand, and see if this rattle is for you or not. So there we go. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.